How many students should be in this
There should
school?
be 1,000.
1,000.
Okay, I predict when I come back, in 10 years, I hope I can come back in 10 years,
Well,
there
we
will
just
be
have a little
1,000.
bit less than 1,000. We just have a little bit.
You're straight to the
I think it will happen. I think it has to happen, because let me tell you that this school is so positive and so powerful that if you consider all the schools in Indiana, how come it is that Hastings Hebrew Academy scores at the very top? If anything, it should score at the bottom. Why? Because a good part of the day is taken up not with limudei chol, secular studies, but with limudei kodesh, our traditions and our heritage, which is not part of the curriculum of Indiana. Last time I checked, I was even amazed when I went into one of the classrooms downstairs. There's a book called Indiana Science. Are you telling me that Newton has a different law in Indiana than he does in Ohio? What is Indiana Science? Who can tell me what Indiana Science is? That's the name of the textbook, Indiana Science. Anybody know what that means?
The standards. Follows the standards.
I don't know. To me, Newton is Newton, and whether frogs are frogs, whether they're speckled or leopard, or aquatic or non-aquatic, they're still frogs. So, we have something to really think about. I'm hoping that in the future you'll really consider what it means to be a student. Let me tell you a little bit about Hong Kong, China. 27 countries, kids that were actually Chinese that somehow ended up in our school, kids from all over Asia. 40% of our kids came from Israel. Now, why would they be coming from Israel to Hong Kong? Give me some thinking possibilities as why Hong Kong would have 1 out of every 40%, what would that be? In a classroom of 10, 4 would be Israelis. Yes? You have to help me because that's higher math even I can. Yes, what is it? 40%. 4 out of 10, right? So, we have those kids in the school. Any problems with that? 40% of the students coming from Israel. What problems do you see with that? Yes?
I mean, well, it's kind of a lot for all coming from Israel. I would expect it.
And what kind of problem would that produce?
I don't know.
Think about it.
Oh, it would run out of,
Right out of Israel, right to the school.
there would be like no more Israelis left eventually.
Well, I don't think that we're emptying out Israel in Hong Kong, but that could be, yes.
It's hard for the students to understand.
And communication. You cut 40% of the kids come from Israel with no language. For sure not Chinese, but no English. And we have kids coming from Belgium, kids coming from other European countries, especially France. Wow. Yes?
I'm from France.
Okay, so you know what it's like to be a Frenchman and come into a class where everybody's talking English and you don't know what hit you. But eventually these kids rise to the top. So what I'm telling you is to accept the challenges that lay ahead. I hope that if you ever leave this school to go to other schools and they don't offer Hebrew, what should you take instead?
Chinese.
French is good, Spanish is good,
Chinese.
Chinese. Let me tell you about our school that I helped to even go into elementary, middle school, now high school. Can you imagine a high school of 70 kids in the middle of Hong Kong? But that's the beginning of a whole episode. I was so happy to see last night about how many kids in the 8th grade?
15.
15 kids, wow. 14. Somebody did not make it last night, I don't know what happened. But the fact is that that's a phenomenal, phenomenal thing. And our school had to offer Chinese because all the other international schools in Hong Kong offer Chinese. So the kid gets homework in Hebrew, in Chumash, and in math, and of course science with the frogs, and a lot of English reading assignments, and guess what they get to do every night? Look at characters and how to make them, and look at vocabulary words, that there is absolutely nobody in their home that speaks Chinese. Even the Amma, anybody know what that is, by the way? Interesting word, Amma, Aleph, Mem, Hey. Take a guess. One in every house. You can't live in Hong Kong without an Amma because something's wrong with you. What, are you making your own bed? Are you crazy? Yes?
Mother?
Okay, it comes very much from the same cognate, Aleph and Mem. But the Amma, there's second mothers and third mothers. Yes?
Amma is from the top of your nose.
Okay, that's a measurement. That's interesting. That's a relationship over there. Very good. But a shivcha and an ama, you hear it in the Tanakh all the time. The shivcha and the ama. So when my students come to Hong Kong, I have to tell them, you know what? You've got to pick that up because there's no ama here to help you pick that up. So it's a whole education for them. Sometimes when you have everything, it could be very, very dangerous because you forget how to do things. I myself just learned how to wash dishes recently by going to Eretz Israel because everybody, that's the style. And the ama is usually not Chinese. They're from the Philippines. They're from the Philippines. They come to a place like Hong Kong because they have a terrible situation in their own country and they need to make some money to help support their families back home. A very tragic life that you'll read about when you do advanced social studies. But yes, China is the world's strongest power. China owns practically the United States. And I'm telling you this because it's important for you to know the importance of languages and the importance of being able to think in several cultures. Because China will be the most powerful country in the world. But that's just the beginning. Let me just tell you one fast anecdote because I have to really conclude in a few minutes. I was trying to help our school to have, it's just a small 3,000 Jewish community. Not a lot of people. Not a lot of people. I was trying to help the school to grow and to be able to offer new programs. And the chief rabbi of England, Rabbi Dr. Sir Lord Dr. Jonathan Sachs, would come to Hong Kong because at one point, as somebody pointed out, it belonged to England for 100 years, and then they gave it back to China. And he was very famous. He was on the BBC radio, written a lot of books, and some of the very, very wealthy people in Asia were just fascinated by him. Because even the non-Jews in the world respect our tradition. President Obama right now is speaking to thousands of Jews in Washington, D.C., and Prime Minister Netanyahu is there this week, today, right now, as I speak, worrying about the relationship between Israel and the United States. And there's a lot of respect for Israel, the country, the people, and in China, what they admired most is the brains and the thinking. So what if I told you that in South Korea, you guys are so lucky, if you were in 11th grade in South Korea, there's a book called Legends of the Talmud. It's Agadata, which means storytelling, but it's also some of the Mishnah and some of the Halacha that is found in the Talmud. Can you imagine people who are not Jewish, who don't speak English, having an English, Korean translation in Seoul, Korea? You cannot graduate without Talmud in a place like Asia. How do you explain that? You guys might be able to graduate here without reading that book, but they can't. Yes.
Maybe because the schools know that, like, a lot of kids that read the Talmud, they have good learning skills.
Exactly. Very good answer. Good thinking and learning skills, an excellent answer. They respect our tradition, our written tradition and our oral tradition. And people who are not even Jewish say, my goodness, look at these people have been in just a few more years than 60 years. They have developed a country from just desert land and abandoned malaria swamps to being one of the most sophisticated high-tech centers in the world. What is their secret? What is their secret? There's two words that I would like to leave you with, which is the secret. Besides the fact we talked about before, hashgacha pratit, God watching out for every and each individual. Besides that, there's two words. One has to do with people, and one has to do with book. And that describes the Jewish tradition and the Jewish people. Anybody want to think about what those two words are, putting it together? Take a guess. This is not a test, and it won't go on your transcript. In Hebrew.
Oh.
Two words. Book, people. Yes. Okay, that's even a higher level than I was expecting, but let's just take it down one tiny notch. Torah Yisrael is the ultimate goal. That's an excellent answer, yes.
I was thinking Torah.
Okay, it's not even Torah, it's Am HaSefer, the people of the book. The people who got that name is the people of the book. Even the Arabs called the Jews Al HaKitab. Al means about, Kitab from the word Kotev. They determined their life by the book. by the 613 mitzvot, by the laws that God gave us to live and lead a better life, and to be a ma'or lagoyim, so that people in Hong Kong go to Israel. Just last week I talked to someone who went to the Technion to get help for the most powerful country in the world, China, to get help in research, to get help. The princess of Thailand was in Yerushalayim this past week, also looking for research so that she can bring it back to Thailand. This is the chokhmah that Bnei Yisrael have had ever since Avraham Avinu, and Ve'hamin b'Hashem. Avraham Avinu, our forefather Abraham, believed in God, and therefore God rewarded him with the ability to pass on a tradition which makes us one of the most admired peoples in the world, even by the non-Jews. So who knows what a Kal Vachomer is? Anybody have that give me, come on, Kal Vachomer. It's a word I know you've heard 1,000 times. Sometimes you even see it in the Rashi, it's called Kuf Vav. Yes?
It's that logical thing.
Exactly logical. So if you have 2 minutes extra recess for doing absolutely nothing, then if you do something really special in your class, you should probably get at least
4.
At least 4. That's a Kal Vachomer, or Kol Sheken. It's this way, and that's the way it is, that in the same similar circumstances over here, how much more so, and how much definitely we have to come to a logical conclusion. And that means that you guys have to think carefully. If everybody in the world is looking at us as Jews, as Israel, as people of the book, we dare not put that aside and forget about it. I'm really hoping that you will think very, very carefully about what you do after you finish middle school and where you're going with your life. If you want to get good grades, if you want to have an easy life at the university and be admired as the world admires the Jewish people, then it's kedai, it's worth your while to think about how many languages you're going to learn, how much logic you have in your mind, what kind of conclusions you can draw from reading a pasuk in the Chumash or the Mishnah or the oral tradition as well as the written tradition, and learn if you can be successful, because that is why God has given us this heritage. So Kol Tuv, and I'm hoping that you guys will invite me to your 12th grade graduation.